to Wright Stuff Radio show with Dale Dixon, CEO and President of the Better Business Bureau, and Jeff Reynolds with Reynolds and Meyer. And today's question we're going to talk about, we just finished the radio show, so now we're going to talk about if you have a startup and you have an idea, what are a few things that you would do to implement those few things to get that idea kicked off? Let's start there.
Go for it, Jeff.
Okay. Well, so I guess the first thing is I want to really clarify what my idea is, right? So a lot of people spend a lot of energy where they have all these sort of gnats floating around in their head, right? These little ideas and, I could do this and I could do that. And it's all kind of part of one idea, but it's really like 1,000 different ideas, right? So you need to really sort through those gnats, kind of swat them away, and then pick which one or two you're going to focus on and really clarify in your own mind what it is you're offering, what the value proposition is, so that then you can go talk to people and get some feedback.
Yeah, because I think we come up with lots of ideas, then we become flustered because there's so many of them. We need to shelf them. We need to write it down. We need to say, maybe this is a good marketing idea. Maybe this is a good, when we have 2 more employees added on to staff, whatever, to improve our culture.
Yeah, so I use Trello as a tool. I don't know if you know Trello, but there's other tools. You can just use a piece of paper. But all I do is I create lists of to do, doing, and done, and with a list of projects. And then I create another column, which is backlog. And I put everything that's just an idea in this backlog thing. And it gives it just a place to live, but then I can focus on what's actually on my to-do list.
For the project.
Before the project, yeah.
Okay.
For the project.
For the project.
Yeah.
So I've got a project I've been working on. I've been testing it internally. I really think it's got business potential externally. And I've been asking for some advice along the way. I've noticed that I have to fight really hard to keep my eyes on the vision and keep it simplified, because as I've asked for advice and talked to people, everybody's got an idea to add on to it, and I keep saying no. We shed the junk, and we're gonna stay focused on the true purpose, and then it's finding ways to test externally, and that's the challenge that I'm working through right now.
Well, you know what you said. I always think one of a founder's biggest challenges is to keep open enough to like input in other people's ideas,
making them feel like they're heard.
Well, not only making them feel, but for your own sake.
Yeah, like you don't want to miss the good ideas out there.
Yeah. And you to find that balance of how you take the input or dig the nugget out without going too far off, without kind of becoming this Frankenstein of ideas. Yeah. And I mean that is actually a real startup founder skill. And some people really struggle. I struggle with it, right? Because it's like I get it with people who are raising money. Oh, investor told me if I just do this, then they'll invest in me. Another one said, oh, you need to do this, and so they're literally just whipsawing themselves back.
Because I think, and I kind of caught this from when Dale was sharing, is you start getting these ideas and inputs, all of a sudden, the clarity of what you were doing could change, and then it may become muddled in your brain. Of not remembering or focusing on what it was that we had a simple program in the beginning.
Yeah, so I'm going to pause because we've got folks watching. Are there questions coming in? Mm-hmm. Nothing? No comments? Shave, Brandon?
No.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and I think the way I do that is, and this sounds kind of sterile, but in action it's less so. I want to figure out what the hypothesis is that I'm testing. What question am I trying to answer? So for most people, that first question is there a market for this? Is anybody interested in it? And so people usually jump to the fun stuff of prototyping and building a product, and I like doing that too. But if you have a question, you just write it in a question form, then you can put your energy to answering that question before you move on to the next one.
Don't you build the project around just one person? I mean, you find that what that one person needs.
Yeah, I think of it as a persona, or use case. These are kind of buzzy words, but like I want to think about, I want to understand who my customer is, and when I do think that's not like just demographics. I want to know the psychographics. I want to know, do they drink beer or do they drink alcohol? And if so, is it beer or wine? If it's beer, is it microbrew or Budweiser? Is it and I what car do they drive? All these things that help me imagine a rich picture of who I'm talking to. And then also, how are they going to use it? That's what a use case is. So it's like, how are people actually going to, so I build this persona, and then what is the use case that this persona is going to walk through to get the value that I hope to deliver? And I'm answering my questions in that context.
Because the reason I went there, I think it's so natural to think, oh, this is awesome. Everybody's going to want this.
Everybody's going to want it. And if everybody wants it, it's probably not that great of an idea.
Yeah.
And then what happens when nobody wants it, you can't sell it, and then you say, I'm just distraught because
where's the
I
beer?
just spent this time. Yeah.
Do I drink beer or wine?
Yeah. Where's the cheapest beer I can get? Mass volumes.
Well, so it's back to, I said this earlier, you'd rather have 3 super passionate customers that you can learn from. Many businesses have been built on 3 passionate customers versus 20 people that are medium rare on your.
And the customer is key. I don't remember where I heard it, but somebody was doing some testing on a new product. And they said they finally figured out the viability when they were doing the testing, and then they asked the cold, hard question, will you buy it?
Yeah.
And the people who had been testing it and were giving great feedback and said they loved it, they would not pull money out of their pocket
Yeah.
to pay for it.
Then the feedback you got may not necessarily be, it was what you wanted to hear, but it may not be what you needed.
Well, the other problem is that people can imagine themselves using it, but that's not the same thing as being willing to part with money.
Yeah.
So, like, an example I read, this is a Paul Graham thing, who's a startup guy in Silicon Valley. He said, if you created a startup network or like a social network for pet owners, you'd ask your friends, hey, would you use this? And they all go, yeah, I have animals. I use social media. Yeah, I can imagine maybe using that. Well, there are no successful social network for pet owners, right?
Yeah, how
because
many
nobody's
cute videos of cats playing pianos can we stand?
So-
We've got enough on Facebook.
Hey, there could be a product there because we never thought that cats could get counseling, right? Right?
Anything's possible.
Anybody who had cats
But that's the
needed
whole point.
counseling.
It's
There
not
is.
for everybody.
There's
My last real comment on that is like you said, what if you want everybody to like it? I actually think of a good business idea as the opposite. Like I want to be able to argue against my idea. I want to be able to say this is not for these people. To me, that's one of the criteria that I use to judge whether I'm onto something or not. Because if everybody's going to like it, then it's probably so kind of milquetoast that the reality is it's either being done or you don't have a story to tell.
Okay, so I guess what we're getting to is the question was when you have an idea, what are the few of the things that you can do to get it into implementation, right? I mean, to make it a valid conception where it's either a product or it's a service. And what you guys are suggesting is one, make sure you stay focused on and keeping it simple. I mean, you brought up there's a lot of ideas. When everybody gets excited about it, they're going to start wanting to change it or do this little addition, and pretty soon you're going to be a long ways from where you were. The second thing is you got to have people test it, and then you got to ask them to buy it. Yeah. I think Nathan Barry does this in your interview that you did with him with Built in Boise. Was Nathan said that long before? I mean, he was 6 months out or 9 months out, a year, but he's like, I want to pre-order right now.
Yeah, he put a very simple landing page up, and anybody can, using a Weebly or WordPress.
Why did
whatever.
you buy it, or why won't you buy it?
Well, and you have to put it out and test it.
Yeah.
I mean, I even tell people, if you have an idea for a social network, I have a company I'm working with that it's not really a social network, but it's an online directory. I said, why do a website? Just put together a Facebook page today and see if you can get people to join it to talk about this issue, and just run some ads and test some language and learn. Yeah. And
So testing is a big deal.
But you have to be clear what you're testing, right? It's focusing so you can test.
Yeah, and I think I failed in that in the past because I go all the way to it. I'll drop $5,000 on this website. I'll just do it. Have you heard of myidahohunt.com? Well, it's not around anymore, but I thought it was a good idea. I mean,
yeah.
So here's the other thing I think is an existing business. A guy like me who's been around for a while.
Yeah.
We've been doing things the way that we've been doing them. It's been working. But you know what? We're now need to take it to the next level. I mean, number one, where do we get that idea from? And then two, how do we execute it? I mean,
well, can I skip the idea thing for just a second? I would say a major issue when existing companies try to launch new initiatives is nobody is a project owner. Nobody really owns it internally. So whether that's the owner of the business, they kind of have. I mean, I've fallen victim to this, into the trap, right? Where I have this great idea, And I say I'm going to do it, but then my client work ends up coming first, right? And so it just never happens. I never own it. So
That's
you
a
get
great
to
point.
figure out who is actually going to own it. Who's going to be judged on this? Is it yourself, or is it an employee, or
Or you can outsource it.
you get outsourced?
Yeah.
But I think that's a step that a lot of people miss.
Because I think this comes around a lot when you realize there's a liability or a risk in your company, right? I mean, you may be doing something that there's some potential liability with an employee getting hurt, or you're doing something that maybe the laws have changed. I look at HR. I mean, that's something that I don't know anything about. I rely upon the outside consultancy. I think the biggest thing is that we're all trying to grow sales. We're trying to grow revenue. I mean, how do we do that? Okay, we've already tapped out our market here, or have we not?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's a big question is, let's get another added service in here when we haven't tapped into the market that we're already in.
Well, sorry, I don't mean to keep answering.
That's all right.
About my comment is you have to ask yourself, what business are you really in? Mm-hmm. And, if you're in disaster repair, like you're actually in some of the things that Dale was talking about earlier. You're actually in the certainty business. You're actually in these other business. What are some other services you can offer that pay off that same promise?
See, but I also look at too, how big of a market is there, and how can I get more of that market before I want to add on another service?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that we all struggle with, because we want to grow our revenue. We think, oh, we're doing the best we can doing this. Let's add something else.
But it means the owner getting their hands dirty, and when I say the owner of the project, whoever owns it, to your point, gets their hands dirty, they've got to be talking to people. Sitting in a dark room or in the basement, cranking out code or whatever it is to build the business isn't enough. You've got to literally be nose to the grindstone, having conversations with people to find out what they really want.
You can fool yourself into thinking that that's work.
Will they buy it? Yeah.
That that you're fiddling with spreadsheets and whatever. And you're fooling yourself that you're working on a project when really you're just goofing off. It's not.
Well,
building something nobody ever wants.
Yeah.
Because you didn't ask the question.
And what's interesting too is, like, at the smokeout today, a guy says, "What are you?" He says, "I'm a chiropractor." And this marketing guy, Glenn Lexus, says, "Oh, well, there's 177 chiropractors in this area. So what is it that you do differently than those other 177?" I mean, it's a great question, because that's a lot of competition.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. This whole idea of being different, the differentiation, really starts having some challenges when you deal with professional services, and it's not. There's a couple good books. I'm really interested in that topic. I don't know that.
But it's also a perception too.
Well, I kind of guess that's what I'm saying is, like, there are lawyers. What's the difference between a $600 an hour lawyer and a $100 an hour lawyer? And the reality is, most of them don't have some really crazy differentiation. It's reputation. It's the things that Dale was talking about earlier: the certainty, the trust, these other things. I mean, sometimes it's different, but sometimes
They've
it's
gotten
just
to that point
competency.
where they can charge that because they've had that much success.
Seth Godin just wrote a really thought-provoking blog that differentiation is a non-starter. It doesn't even exist in this day and age. Something to that effect.
Yeah. And I think this idea that just being different, it's interesting to read that from Seth, because, Seth kind of made his mark with the Purple Cow book, one of his earlier
He's
success
only written
books.
15 books.
Yeah,
on
it's
that
hard to
subject.
track, right? but still, what does that mean? It's not enough just to be different. And I think specifically professional services, I know we're kind of on a little tangent here, but specifically professional services, your actual ability to deliver and execute, it can really build your brand as much as being, quote, different than the other chiropractors.
It's not about being different.
And as a matter of fact, I don't want a chiropractor that's that different.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Do you go to the urologist that does it differently? No, thank you.
It's hard for me to crawl in the crawl space when my back's screwed up, right? So, what are we going to leave everyone with? Last points of wisdom.
I don't have any wisdom, so
No.
you're going to have to skip me. No.
What's an article that you read?
Yeah, let me tell you what I've read. Well, I guess my thing, back to the original question of how do you get started, I just encourage people to actually start. And we don't talk about the issue of fear often enough. And the truth is, most of the hurdles that people run into, not wanting to talk to customers, not wanting to narrow their idea, these sorts of things are really driven by a personal fear of failure, or being told it's dumb, or feeling like you're dumb. So, we have to build that culture of it's not failure, it's just data, let's just learn and get better.
Absolutely.
Dale?
Identify your core values and what you stand for and will not bend on or break to, and live those out day in and day out. make them central to your business.
And show that through whatever idea or project you're working on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's crucial because I've realized how much that impacts my brand and my business and how people hire my services. If I'm going to do something, I got to make sure that that all streamlines into when I pitch this service or I pitch this marketing employee, whatever, it has the backbone of my company, which is me, a hard valued individual. The other thing that you shared too is I really like is you got to have one person own it. Yeah, I mean, that's so we can have someone in our office, hey, here's a project I want you to do. When they're already working 40 hours a week and you don't want them to work more than 40 hours a week, you'll never execute it, get it out there. Yeah. Brandon Wright, Wright Stuff Radio Show, Dale Dixon, CEO of the Better Business Bureau, and Jeff Reynolds with Reynolds and Meyer. Hey, thanks for watching.